You're listening to a Rev FM production podcast. Welcome to Pastors Live, the show that discusses things of the Bible and current events for people who love to laugh. And now, the hosts who answer questions with more questions. It's Pastors Dave, Ty, Shane, and the other guy.
Hey everybody, this is Pastor Ty. We got Pastor Dave here today.
God bless you
Got
guys.
Pastor Steve's here today.
Hello.
Got Benjamin. He's doing our production today. Well, Ben's doing our production today. We're really thankful for him. And by the way, just so you guys are aware, not everybody wins in the end. We were having that conversation right before the mics went live, kind of a little
Paul
bit from
said
yesterday.
so.
Paul said so. You know, everyone runs a race. He said that in was it Corinthians, right?
1 Corinthians 9.
1 Corinthians 9. He says everybody runs, but not everybody wins. And so Paul would not have been a fan of the participation trophy. So
right. Exactly.
let's have this conversation. I think this one's important. I think this is good. So what do you guys think about participation trophies? Where does your headspace when it comes, like, everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets something? What do you guys think? I don't know. You know, Ben, what do you think? Should everybody get a trophy? What do you think?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends. I mean, if they're like third graders, maybe.
But when I was in third grade,
there's a maturity level to
Okay.
it.
Well,
That's a great point.
He does.
Ty.
That's a good point.
Ben, sorry.
Yeah, if you
you
need to
look
be-
like your dad. Sorry.
Yeah, if you need to be awarded simply for trying, then you need to recheck your motivations. And
If you're mature.
Yeah.
But if you're in third grade, it's okay. You know what? I'm going to change my thinking here. I think Ben's onto something there, because maybe that third grader that gets the attaboy goes on to continue in his, whether it's music or sports or whatever it might be, right?
Right.
And so he improves himself because he sticks with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Ben, you might be onto something.
Now that's interesting. Okay, so with that in mind, which I appreciate that. Steve, what do you think? Participation trophies?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
It just doesn't. It teaches you that it's okay to just meander
halfway.
through life, yeah, and you're going to be, patted on the back. And I mean, I was in, when I was in, middle school, before that, when I was 10, 11, 12, I played ball. We played to win, and I made the 12-year-old All-Stars when I was 10. I had just started playing ball when I was like 9, just turning 10. I made I was 8. I'm sorry, I was 8 and made the 10-year-old All-Stars pitching, and we played to win. We had All-Star games. We won, and it felt good when you won. You didn't feel good when you lost, but you didn't get trashed because you lost. But it was just a learning experience to do better next time, and we would go out on the field next time. We practice harder, and we learned that I learned that at a young age. And I guess
hard work pays off.
Right.
Is what
Yeah,
you're
hard
saying.
work pays off.
Sure.
Yeah,
Right.
And even if you come in, even if you don't win the whole thing,
right.
the hard work pays off.
Right.
But
Right, and there's good sportsmanship. You learn how to be a good sport
well,
when you do
I
lose.
think that's an issue. I think
Yeah.
losing teaches us something.
Right.
Like not getting the thing that we wanted to get
Right.
actually teaches me I can do better, and I'm going to try to do better. And I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I think
it is.
when we talk about that because there is a prize.
Right.
Right.
There is.
Now in the kingdom of God, there is
Right.
a prize, which is Christ.
Sure.
And everyone gets that prize if
Right.
they will
Right.
receive it. So there's not a participatory.
Not everybody gets it if
in
you
other
don't
words,
have Christ.
you can't participate in church and say you have the prize.
Right.
You actually have to receive the prize. So you have to actually do what's necessary. So Dave, what do you think, man?
Well, there's an interesting thing, interesting quote from Coach Vince Lombardi, who, of course, is the quintessential coach, right? Everybody looks to Vince Lombardi. And he said, show me a good loser, and I'll show you someone who loses often.
Yeah.
And he was most professional athletes, and we're talking again that maturity thing that Ben brought up a minute ago.
Yeah,
is
that's
an
really
issue.
good.
A professional athlete does not like to lose. He doesn't say, "Hey, no problem, great, let's all go out and have a big party and have it catered and live like we just won the championship and we just got our tails kicked on the field." Most professional athletes won't do that. They're thinking hard. Oh man, in the third inning, that error happened or whatever. And I remember when I was coaching ball, my brother and I were coaching ball together, And what we would do at the end of the game, we would show our team, here's the number of errors we made, and here's how many runs the other guys scored. Now, we had a 20-1 season, so we had a winning season, but that doesn't mean that the other guys never scored on us, right? And we would show our players, hey, here it is, guys, check this out. We had 3 errors, and they scored 2 runs on us, and 2 of those runs got scored because of our errors. Does that make sense? And so we would show them the correlation.
Yeah.
To say this is why we drill during the week. I remember when I first moved to Oregon, and I thought, oh my goodness, it just rains and rains and rains here. How does anybody play baseball here? But then the Oregon State University Beavs brought back home back-to-back College World Series championships. And I got to speak with Pat Casey, the coach for the OSU team. And I said, man, how in the world do you win 2 back-to-back championships in Omaha and you live in Oregon? He goes, oh, first of all, we have a great field house. And when it rains, we work out in the field house and we drill, baby, drill.
Yep.
But it's
Right.
all about the drills.
Right.
And that's the thing. It taught, you learn early on, Steve. You did, I did. I was a young all-star 4 years in a row as a kid. And you learn it's hard work that pays off.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it does, because you have to. We want to do well. But
And what
did
does
you guys,
Paul say in Philippians 2? Work
Right.
out your own salvation.
right?
And that word is calisthenics. It's where we get our word for calisthenics. It's work out. It's not, hey, you work for your salvation. No. You're saved. Work it out.
Yeah, live your life.
Conditioning.
Yeah. Well, did you guys know where the first participation trophy came from? Just so I figured,
I do not.
I will do the salted peanut today. It was February 8th, 1922. One of the earliest known mentions of the term participation trophy occurred on February 8th, 1922, in a Ohio newspaper. And it was an article announcing the high school basketball tournament.
Oh, funny.
So just for whatever that's worth, it's been around a long time. I didn't see it until I was coaching, and I'd coached soccer for 11 years, and I coached 9th grade girls soccer, which you want to talk about that? They're one step. They're just one mouth guard away from rugby. I'm just being real. I mean, they really are. They're some of the meanest players I've ever coached. And I remember coming into an awards ceremony, and it was the first time I saw participation trophies. And so the stage was covered in all this gold plastic, right?
Right.
And it was tables upon tables. Of course, there was the big center one for the championship, but
Right.
it was an interesting thing. I'd never watched that in my life until that time. And
What a strange dynamic.
yeah, it was a strange dynamic. But you know what? We run the race to win, and we should run it with some joy. And that's really where we're at in our reading today. So in our reading today, we are in Philippians chapter 4, where Paul started with, in chapter 3, he said, finally, brethren, he says what? Rejoice, right? Rejoice in the Lord. Mm-hmm. And then you start realizing, his finally is coming together. And he talks to them about rejoicing in the Lord, and again to say rejoice. And it's really interesting for me, because the idea where Paul starts talking about, first of all, he says, hey, we're citizens of heaven. I mean, we should be rejoicing because of that this world is not our home. And that's at the end of chapter 3 and verse 20. But then he's talking about a couple ladies that were in the ministry that were having a problem, and he urges them and urges the church to help them sort out their issue, because remember that we're in this together, right? We shouldn't have this problem in the church. And then he says, rejoice in the Lord always. Mm-hmm. And then again, he says, again, I say to rejoice. And I love this call to joy. And, the fruit of the Spirit is love. And we see love, and love is expressed through joy. Our joy for God. And you read that through the Psalms, through the Psalter, and different parts of the Scripture. I was talking to somebody the other day, Dave. We were talking about context of the Psalms, right? Because when we talk about, there are if you guys don't know this, there are 116 superscripts, so to speak, in the Psalms. Some of them are one word, some of them are sentences, like a miscall of David, when he, right? So there's long ones and there's short ones. It's 116 total, and a couple of them, and so the rest of them don't have them. And that's where it gets really interesting because, like, when Dave, we talk about this all the time. When you're studying the Bible, context is key.
Context is everything.
And then all of a sudden, you have a psalm where the context isn't given. And I think that's what's really interesting, because if some of those were added by scribes over the years or historians, you begin to realize, those are important. We can't ignore those because it gives us context for the psalm. But I thought the other day, it's really interesting when we don't have context on a psalm,
right?
Because you're like, how does this fit? And I think it's really important that we realize that there is a need for context.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this need to understand that
it's not optional.
It's not optional, and it's really hard. And we've got to own it when we don't have context on a psalm.
Well,
but we have a context for Paul when he says rejoice.
Right.
He's writing to a church that's going through difficult times and persecution, but he himself was in jail.
And he's in prison.
Yeah.
So when we look at, in this chapter, verse 13, right? And he says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And then you go to a high school track meet or a college track meet, and you see these people, these well-meaning, lovely Christian athletes, but they're, brandishing Philippians 4:13 on their jersey or on their towel or whatever. Like, yeah, man, I can do it. Paul tells me that I can do it. I can clear 17 feet, 8 inches or whatever it is on the pole vault. What happens when you don't? Right? Yeah. And typically it's because you didn't have enough faith.
Or you didn't have enough time and practice.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not because you didn't have enough faith,
well,
and because, Philippians 4:13 does not tell you can clear 17 feet, 8 inches, because if you can clear 17 feet, 8 inches, you may as well say, I can clear 20 feet, because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Wait a minute. Has Philippians 4:13 become the participation trophy verse?
Sort of, right?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to tie, I don't mean to tie that all together, but it is kind of like that, right? It's like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But what happens when you fail?
Right.
And you've been touting, I can do all things through Christ, and you fail, and other people that are not Christians are watching you touting, God can get you through it. God can help you do that because you can do all things.
God can help you do it. But
Right.
What happens when you don't?
What happens when you don't? And somebody said something to me the other day.
He'll get you through the failures.
He'll get you through the failures too. But
that's what Philippians 4:13
Right.
means. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can be abased. I can abound.
In other words, I can fail or I can succeed.
There you go.
I can be hungry or I can be satisfied.
Right.
I can be
naked
cold
or clothed.
or I can be warm.
Yes.
I can do all those things through Christ. So in other words, you can lose in Christ
And
you
still
can
be
win
content, still have joy.
and still have joy, because that's the whole point. I thought it was very interesting, Dave. You and I grew up in that generation that were, especially with worship, that got really weird, and it's still kind of a weird thing today. But the idea of like, hey, I'm trying to get the eyes off of me and point to Jesus, which is absolutely we're supposed to do, right?
We all want that, sure.
We all want that. But I had a couple encounters with a younger generation where somebody did something, and I'm a musician, and I said, you know what, that was really lovely. And their visceral reaction to, it's not me, and it's all Jesus. And I finally had it, Dave. So it was like one of those moments where I could tell that my age and my experience finally caught up to me in that moment.
Age and experience.
It wasn't an age thing. It was age and experience. And this was not sitting on my front porch yelling, "Get off my lawn." I want to clarify. And I looked at them and I said, "Hey guys, can I give you a different insight?"
Yeah.
You rehearsed, you practiced, you put in the time, you put in the effort.
It paid off.
And it paid off.
Yeah.
And you know what? God gets the glory for your life, but you're his.
Yeah.
Don't make it weird. When somebody gives you a compliment, just say thank you.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do, because you put in the effort, you put in the time.
For the Lord.
So Dave, imagine. Here what I was doing is I was trying to imagine that. So I was thinking of, you and I know guys who've gone on and gotten, secondary education and gone on their education, right? Could you imagine some guy, some guy puts in 3 to 7 years worth of work on a dissertation, and then and they sign it, because I don't know if you guys know how that works. You got to have the guy sign it, right? Of course, you put a $50 bill in it to see if the second guy actually reads it, just for whatever it's worth. Usually, it's the first guy that reads it, but the dissertation is done, and would it be weird if like that there was a visceral reaction from somebody with that kind of education? Oh no, it's just the Lord. It's all the Lord. When you put in 7 years of time, study, prayer, fasting, seeking God, getting into the Word, going deep, it's like I was trying to think about that, because you can be content, but God still gets the glory for our lives. That's whether we win or we lose, God gets the glory.
Well, here's the thing, though, Ty. What you just described, we see in Paul's letter to the Corinthians. Some of you say, I'm of Paul. Some of you say, I'm of Apollos. Right. Some of you say, I'm of Cephas, Peter. Some of you say, I'm of Christ.
Right.
He's not slapping them on the back for saying, I'm of Christ. Those are the people that say, oh, no. I'm only of Christ. And that's what you're describing here. Oh, no. It's all about Christ. Those guys weren't saying, I'm of Christ in a good way. They were being the, a little bit proud about it, a little bit, yeah.
Well, and so were the people who were saying, well, I'm of Peter.
I'm of Peter.
Yeah. And I do appreciate that, Paul kind of gets into the whole baptism thing at that point. Right. He goes like, I'm kind of glad that, I didn't baptize none of y'all, but because you guys are a mess. But it really does get weird.
That's what he said in the Greek too, Steve. He said, "I didn't baptize none y'all."
Yeah,
none y'all.
Yeah. None y'all. Yeah, that's what it says. None y'all. But I do want to encourage us. I think when we're talking about these things, we're talking about meditating on that which is good, because that's the other thing here, right? We want to meditate on things that are good. He says, finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of a good report, if there's any virtue, if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things.
Right on.
The things which you have learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. It's interesting to me that is really not where people's mindset is, right? And I love the girls. I love the artwork for the girls. Got the big the glasses on all the different art, because they're going through Philippians right now for Ladies' Night Out and for the ladies' ministry, and it's all about mindset. It's like, how do you view the world? Because you view the world through your mindset. And he's like, at the very end, he's like, guys, look, finally, chapter 3, rejoice. Chapter 4, end. Hey, rejoice. Again, I say rejoice. And then he says, have a mindset, have this different mindset.
Yeah.
Meditate on good things, because if you meditate on good things, that's what your mindset's going to be on. And I love that. I think that's really important.
I do too. I think it's amazing. We do have 3 minutes left. And did you want to get to some of these emails today?
Oh, I was going to save one for Monday.
Right.
But yeah, let's go. Let's
do the paper route ones.
Oh, let's do the paper route ones.
We had a lot of email
that was
on
great.
Paper routes, but here's a couple of them from our good friend David in California.
What
it's
up,
not
David?
me. I didn't fake this. This isn't from me.
Are you sure?
It's another David, okay?
He
says, I was 10 years old delivering papers, knocking on doors to collect. I still remember collecting.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, there was a whole kind of a mafiosa thing there, right? But he says, I remember needing to turn in the cash into the adult district managers who has sort of a mafiosa muscle vibe to them. And I remember that. It's like, dude,
you did live in California too, didn't you?
Right, yeah. So how come the guy's wearing a pinstripe suit and a violin case, and I'm having to pay him off? Right?
I'm
just kidding. Come on, everybody, relax. Sort of.
Yeah. Well, that was a reality for me. That was, and I did another job. So I did paper route.
Right.
I had another job. I was a hawk, and so I sold soda and popcorn at games.
There you go.
And that's when I ran into the mafia collection guy. That's like the paper guy. It was an old lady that we had to give the money to at the for that. But these guys were like, and they were funny because if like you spilled a drink, you was paying for it, and you weren't paying retail. You were paying full price if you spilled a drink.
Right.
And so it was the worst thing because you're like literally sometimes you're there and you're on the verge of tears as they're like you've been working for hours and you only walk away with $5-6 because of a tray fall or something.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, that's crazy.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Hey, Joden. Is it Joden or Jodine from Alpine? I love Alpine, by the way.
Yeah,
She's
it's a
like,
great
oh
place.
my gosh, I loved my paper route in 1976. I was 13, up at 4:30 in the morning, walked to the corner, picked up the bundle of papers, brought them back to the garage, folded them, and then on a carpet section that my dad had made for me, there you go, then loaded the papers on my cat, a feral I found on the named Kit Carson, and with my paper bag, and delivered to 88 houses. I rode, hold on, my computer's going to sleep. I rode my green Stingray. Oh, I had a red Schwinn Stingray. Oh my.
Oh, I think that's great.
But she goes, hey, I made $80 a month. So that was good money. That's good. Boy, back in 76 for a 13-year-old.
good.
That's good money.
$80 a month.
The
That's
boys
good, man.
probably wanted that job.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
So good on you, Joden. And then our good friend Darity in Idaho Falls says, it's funny you guys are talking about the paper route because I was reminiscing and the whole collections process. There it is again. She says, I was with my friend the other day and some folks would dodge us. And then there are those who gave a good tip, and then there are also those who kind of had the creepy vibe. All in all, it was a very good life lesson about small business management and capitalism. The real grind, though, was the Sunday edition, absolutely. Because man, they were so heavy. I remember those. So there you go.
Yeah.
So three great emails about the paper out days. Good stuff, you
good
guys.
stuff. And by the way, if you guys have a comment or question, pastorslive@therev.fm, pastorslive@therev.fm. You're loved, your family. God bless you, and we will talk to you on Monday.
Go to church.
Get to church this weekend.
You've reached the end of another episode of Pastors Live, a Rev FM production podcast. Thank you for listening. Submit your questions and comments by email to pastorslive@therev.fm. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review from your favorite podcast listening platform. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon so you don't miss the next episode drop.